We are going to continue with section 4. It's part 2 or day 2 of the notes. Today what we're going to factor are perfect cubes, and then we're also going to learn how to factor by grouping. Now, some Algebra 1 classes do not teach you how to factor cubes, so this part of the notes may be new to you. I have an acronym to help you remember the pattern for the cubes. So let's go ahead and look at our pattern for the cubes. These are the two patterns that you need to memorize. Now, before, when we did the squares, there was only the difference of two squares. There is actually the sum and difference of two cubes. So this first one, this is the sum of two cubes, and this one is the difference. And we're going to memorize the pattern. Now, the u that's right here in the problem is going to come from cube rooting this u cubed. And then the v is going to come from cube rooting this v cubed. And then from there, you just put it into the pattern, which you memorize. Now, if you want to just realize that you can do this, so you're going to have two perfect cubes, and it's either going to be joined with a plus sign, or it's going to be joined with a subtraction sign. Then from there, to solve this, you're going to find the cubed root of u cubed, which gives you u. Then you're going to cube root the v cubed to give you the v. Then from there, the pattern is as follows. Now, let me go ahead and put it in without signs to show you it's the same letters. U squared, uv, v squared, u squared, uv, v squared. Now, to fill in the signs, we're going to think of the acronym SOAP. The S stands for same sign as the original problem. So if we start with a plus sign, then what goes here is a plus sign. If we start with this minus sign here, then a minus sign goes here. So this is the S. The O stands for opposite sign. So opposite sign of the original. So this was originally a plus sign, so this is now a minus. This was originally a minus sign, so this one's a plus. And then the AP stands for always positive. So this is always a plus sign. So a little acronym to help you remember. So this is opposite of the original and always positive. So let's go ahead and practice doing this. So you're going to memorize those patterns. Now, our first example is going to be x cubed, it's this one right here, minus 125. Now, in my problem, this is my u cubed, this is my v cubed. So in order to find out what u equals for my pattern, I take x to the third and I cube root it. Cube root of x to the third is just x, and that's my u. Then I'm going to cube root 125. Cube root of 125 is 5, and that becomes my v. So essentially, all you're doing here is finding the cube root of x, the cube root of 125, keep the same sign. So here we go with soap. Then in the next parentheses, you're going to take the u, which was this, square it. Then the next term is this times this. But remember, we're doing soap, so opposite sign. And then lastly, the last term is this 5 squared, and it's always positive.
Miss Corey?
Yes. Everybody good? We're going to do lots of practice problems to get the hang of this.
Miss Corey,
Yes.
what is the
Okay. So remember, in your pattern, you're multiplying u times v. So remember, my u and my v, u was x and v was 5. So by multiplying uv, I get 5x.
okay? Thank you.
Let's try another one. Uh-oh. All right, so if it helps you to see this first, I am going to figure out what u equals and what v equals. U I find by cube rooting this first term, which gives me x. Then when I find v, I cube root the 27, which gives me 3. So this becomes x minus 3. Now remember, the first term in the next parentheses is going to be this number squared. So x squared. The next one, so again, here let's do the acronym. So this was same sign, so it started out as negative. My next sign using soap is a plus sign, and I find that next term by multiplying these two. Don't look at the sign, just take the number. So it's 3 and an x. Last sign is always positive. And that number that I write in here is this number squared, because that's my v squared. Because remember, the pattern was u squared, let me do it in a darker color, u squared, and then this was uv, and then v squared. And in this problem, when it was a minus sign, it's u minus v. So then this is plus, this is plus. Let's try the next one. So I'm going to cube root the y to the third. That gives me y. I cube root the 8. That gives me 2. I keep the same sign, and now my next parentheses is going to be the red one squared. It's opposite sign. Then I multiply red and blue, so 2y, and then the last term always positive, and it's the blue squared, so 2 squared. And you're done. So in this problem, your u was the cube root of y to the third, which is y. The v was the cube root of 8, which is 2. Let's try the next one. Now also remember, before you start factoring any problem, you should always look to see, is there a greatest common factor that I can factor out? Now in this problem, there is the GCF between 64 and 1 is just 1, so I'm just going to get right into my cube pattern. So again, you're going to cube root 64 and the x cubed, so this becomes 4x. Then I cube root the 1, and I get 1. Keep the same sign. And now the first term of this trinomial is this number squared, so 16x squared. Same sign. Now my next sign is opposite of what I started with. And then I multiply blue times red. So it just becomes 4x because I'm doing 4x times 1, which just gives me 4x. And then the last term, always positive, and it's the red one squared. And you're done.
Why is why is it 16x instead of 4x?
Because you're squaring, remember in the pattern is u squared, and then this was plus u times v, and then v squared. So when I take, this is my u value, it's 4x. When I square 4x, I square the 4, and I square the x.
Okay.
So you're squaring the coefficient and the variable. Let's try the next one. Notice these do not look like perfect cubes. However, there is a greatest common factor that I can divide them by, which is 3. Always, always look for a GCF before you begin any of your pattern factoring, or any factoring for that matter. All right, now that I've done that, and this isn't a cube, it isn't a square, it should be a cube. So now I can begin my cube pattern. Cube root, and now don't forget the GCF, same sign. And maybe let me do it in colors here. So this is blue, this one will be red. So now in the next parentheses, I square the blue. I multiply with opposite sign, so 4 times x. And then the last sign is always positive, and it's a 16. Let me write it down here. So this is opposite, always positive. I'm going to rewrite it because it's on top of that red. X squared minus 4x plus 16. I just rewrote it. It was kind of hard to see. Again, look for a GCF first. There isn't one. 27 is a perfect cube, and so is 1. So here, cube root it. It becomes a 3x. And let me change the color. Same sign. Cube root of 1 is 1. In the next parentheses, I square the 3x. So this becomes 9x squared. Again, same sign. Now I'm going to do opposite sign. Now I'm going to multiply 3x times 1. So this term here just becomes 3x. Next sign is always positive. And then I square the 1, which is 1. And I'm done. Let's try another one. Number 6. First look, see if there's a GCF. There isn't, so I'm going to go right into my factoring. Cube root of 64 is 4. Cube root of y to the third is y. Cube root the 125, you get 5. Same sign. Over here, this one is going to be created by squaring the 4y, so it becomes 16y squared. Opposite sign, multiply 4y and 5, and that's how I get 20y last sign, always positive. Okay, last sign, always positive, AP. And then that's created by squaring the 5. So that gives me 25. Because again, remember this was u squared, this was u times v, and this was v squared. And this is my u, this is my v. Now the next one's a little different, but again, same idea here. This is my u, this is my v after I cube root it. So my u equals x plus 2, and my v is just going to be a y. So again, I'm going to do same sign. And maybe I can do in color here. Okay, the next parentheses, remember, is created by squaring the u. I have to FOIL this thing. So it becomes x squared plus 4x plus 4. So this one was same sign. Oh, and it's a plus sign. And then, what did I do here? It was right. Hold on. Same sign, because it's a minus. And then opposite, so it's a plus sign. And again, that term is created by multiplying x plus 2 times the y. So I'm going to distribute that, or let me write it in here first like that. No, I'll just distribute it. So I get xy plus 2y. And then the last term, always positive, it's a plus, and it's by squaring this y, so y squared. There isn't any like terms, so I'm done. So final answer, x plus 2 minus y, x squared plus 4x plus 4 plus xy plus 2y plus y squared. Now the order of this huge polynomial doesn't matter, as long as the signs are good. Next thing we're going to talk about is factor by grouping. Now factor by grouping is a skill that is taught in Algebra 1, so this part of the notes should be something that you've seen before. So we'll review how to do it. So when we factor by grouping, you're going to be given a 4-term polynomial. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make groups of pairs, so 2 pairs. And then we're going to be factoring out the GCF of each one of the pairs. And then from there, we'd factor out the GCF of those and then put the remaining terms together. So let's try this. Now, the order that you group doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and work with this problem the way it is. So x to the third minus x squared plus 2x minus 2. I'm just rewriting it. So I'm going to make a pair, and then I'm going to make another pair. I need to look for the greatest common factor of my red pair. And the GCF of the red is going to be x squared. I'm going to go ahead and write the GCF. And then in the parentheses, again, remember, it's what you got after you divided by the GCF. I'm going to do the same thing for the blue group. My GCF between 2x and negative 2 is going to be 2. I write the GCF that I divided out, and now I write what I get after I divide. Once you do factor by grouping, the answers that you've gotten after you divide must match. If they do not match, you've either pulled out the wrong GCF or possibly it can't be factored by grouping. So now that we've done this, now if you think about it, this is now the GCF of each term. So you're just going to take that, write it down once, and then you take the two GCFs that you divided by, and they go together in a parentheses. And you're done factoring. So you take this, and it goes over here. Now, you can also write your answer if you prefer to write this one first, and then this one second. The order here doesn't matter. Now, also recall that whenever you factor something, we can now FOIL this, and it should go back to our original problem. So if I FOIL this, and I do first, I get x cubed. If I do outside, I get negative x squared. When I do the inside, I get positive 2x. And when I do last, I get negative 2. It did go back to my original problem up here, so I know I factored it correctly. This is called factor by grouping. It's when you have a 4-term polynomial. Let's try another one. I'm going to go ahead and make my groups or my pairs. I'm going to make a red pair and a blue pair. Now, if you prefer to rearrange it, you can. You still get the same answer no matter what. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my red group. My greatest common factor between 8 and 6 is a 2. And then they both also have an x in common, and that's going to be an x squared. So I'm going to take my GCF, write it out here, and now I'm going to divide this term, and I'm left with 4x cubed. Divide this one, and I get 3. Next, I have to look at the blue group. My greatest common factor between these two is a 3. So I put plus 3 here. And now the answer, after I divide this one, gives me 4x cubed. And after I divide this one, negative 3. Again, remember, these need to look the same. If they don't, maybe you should have pulled out a different sign on your GCF, or maybe even maybe you didn't get the greatest common factor. So now I'll take and rewrite the 4x to the third minus 3, and now take the two GCFs and put them in a parentheses. And you're done. And again, if you'd prefer to write 2x squared plus 3 first, and then the 4x cubed minus 3, either one is acceptable. The order doesn't matter here. Let's try number 9. Red group, blue group. My greatest common factor of red is going to be x squared. The answer after I divide gives me x plus 1. Now, watch what happens on my blue group. If I decide to only try to pull out a positive 5 GCF, watch what happens. I end up getting a negative x minus 1, which doesn't match. So the correct GCF here is going to be a negative 5. And then now my parentheses are going to match. So then after I divide now, I end up with negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive x, and negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1. Now these match, so I did factor it correctly. So now I write that x plus 1, and then I join the red and the blue GCFs. And I'm done. Let's try 2 more examples and we're done. Now, in some Algebra 1 courses, they actually teach you to break apart a trinomial, which is what we're gonna do tomorrow, and break it into a 4-term polynomial, and then factor by grouping. So I'm gonna show you how to factor tomorrow, also using this technique. All right, let's go on to the last 2 examples. Again, you're gonna make your groups, red and blue. Gonna divide by my greatest common factor here, which is x squared. Now the same thing's gonna happen here. Now, some teachers also teach you to pull out the positive 5, then do the whole problem again and divide everything by -1. But it's a lot easier to just pull out the -5. And then what's in your parentheses, and actually, let me make this in black so it matches, x plus 5. Write the ones that match after you divide, and then put the 2 GCFs together. And you're done. And again, you could write this one first, and the x plus 5 second. One more example. Red group, blue group. Greatest common factor of red is going to be x squared. So 3x plus 1. GCF of blue, again, I'm going to pull out a negative because, again, I want my parentheses to look the same. So then here, 3x plus 1. They look the same. Write it once. And then now take the x squared minus 5. And you're done. And that is factoring of perfect cubes and factor by grouping. So your homework is the P4b. Again, it's like last night, it is textbook. Again, some of them are even questions. So again, for the even answers, I will post them. But for the odds, you can go and use Calc Chat. So we still have 5 minutes here. So go ahead, try to go to Canvas, try to open up the PDF, make sure it works for you. If it doesn't work, let me know and I can email it to you. But that is it for day 2 of section P4.